been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I ought to slow down, standing in the pouring rain.
What's going on, folks? Tristan and Tony here at the One Hell of a Life Outdoor Podcast. What's going on, Dad?
The One Hell of a Life Outdoor Podcast. That is right. Thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight, because we have got a huge guest and a legend in the duck hunting industry, Mr. Ramsey Russell, back for his second visit on our show. Mr. Russell, thank you.
Hey, glad to see y'all, man. Glad to be here again. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. We're happy to have you on.
Yeah, man. And man, if you guys don't already know, and I don't want to steal any thunder here, but Mr. Russell, please just introduce everybody who you are first time, if they haven't heard, what you do, and talk a little bit about your background and that kind of thing.
Well, I'm born and raised in Mississippi. You probably can't tell by that accent, but born and raised in Mississippi. I'm an older guy, and for the last 20 years, this is our 20th year in business. For the last 20 years, my wife and I have been a duck hunting broker, worldwide duck hunting broker, and organizing cherry-picked hunts that I personally visited around the world and put them into this program and on a website called getducks.com. And it really kind of sort of started, believe it or not, it started a long time ago with just one hunt. An outfitter up in Canada asked me would I send some hunters his way, and I was doing a lot of habitat consulting back in the day, and I just to reach outside of the old chat rooms at the time, I decided to come up with a web page, never dreaming that 5 or 6 years later I'd leave a federal government career halfway to retirement and start living one hell of a life.
Yeah, that's what I'm
the
talking about. You heard it from Mr. Ramsey Russell, getducks.com, boom plug. Awesome.
But anyway, that's it in a nutshell. I tell my kids all the time, I tell anybody listening, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. It don't matter what business you're in or nothing else. And it's just, you just got to keep going a step at a time. It's funny how when you put your nose to the grindstone, like my wife and I have increasingly for the past 20 years, it's just a day at the office or a day working. And before you know it, you look up from the grindstone and you're 20 years into it.
Yeah. Isn't that true in so many things that we do, whether it's health or, our advancement in our career or, even just taking care of your yard or your house, I guess, in everything we do, consistency is such the common main point to success. Just keep doing it. And I don't care. Look, if you look at social media and listen to a lot of stories on podcasts and whatnot, don't wish myself back into a federal government office. I wouldn't swap lives with nobody. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with what we do. A lot of work, a lot of details, and it, no matter what you love to do in life, if you do enough of it, it's work. Yep. And you've got to respect the work, and you got to respect the job, and you've got to keep on doing the best you can. Yep. And but we're very proud to have been in the business for 20 years and to have established ourselves as offering some of the very best hunting experiences worldwide. And it keeps me on the road a lot, guys. I'm gonna tell you, I travel a whole lot, and I love it. I love every freaking minute of it. But whew, boy, it's nice to get home sometime and sleep in your own bed.
Yeah. What is kind of was your year-round schedule look like roughly, Ramsey?
Man, roughly, I'd estimate 275 to 300 days a year on the road.
Wow.
And I just got back. I don't know what's today, Tuesday. I just got back about 10 days ago from Argentina. I was down there. I left home on, I don't know, May 20th, and got home on July 9th, and jumped around down there. That's become pretty customary. So I'll spend 7 to 8, 9 weeks down in Argentina, home for a little bit. July, August is late July through August. The past couple of years, we've been going to South Africa in August. I leave on the 31st, get back on the
25th of August this year from doing a big couple of tours down in South Africa with guests. Next year, actually, I'm going to be in the Netherlands with hosting some hunts the first couple of weeks of August.
Wow.
So I'll back up into July with South Africa, and then of course September 9th, 10th, and them little blue wings show up. Off we go, man. I really spent a lot of time looping around in the United States and Canada. This year, roughly Mississippi to down towards Venice, Louisiana, south of I-10, chasing blue wings over into Texas, and somewhere around, I don't know, 20th to 23rd of September, head up to Canada. Last year I spent a long time up in Canada. It was Saskatchewan and Alberta and Manitoba and Ontario. And just the way we jumped back and forth, ended up coming out in Vermont sometime in late October and kind of hitting that eastern seaboard, jumping over to Illinois area and coming back home in time for Thanksgiving. This year, I'm going to veer over to the west, pick up British Columbia, try to, even though it's a tad early for prime time, I'm going to hit Washington State and Oregon. Then I've got a final dates to be determined, but a big project going on in Australia. We're working on a project over there. I'm going to do some hunting for dang sure, but it looks like we're going to have 5 or 6 waterfowl scientists in camp working on a project, do a little film, and along with some hunting, collect a lot of important scientific data. And then when it gets really sketchy is, okay, I don't know exactly when I'm going to get back to Seattle or Oregon or wherever my truck is parked, pick up Char Dog, and don't know exactly how many days I got or if I'm going to make it home by Thanksgiving. But that's kind of sort of the plan.
Wow, man. So, you know what? And I don't even know if we got into this the last time we got in there, but I want you to take us back. Let's take a look at a little back in history. And I want you to tell us about what it was like for you growing up as a young man, what inspired you, got you into the outdoors. And, you talk a lot about how, hunting in general, but waterfowl hunting for sure is something that we can pass on, to generations. And that's part of why we do it. What was that for you? What'd that picture look like?
My dad didn't really hunt. he grew up hunting with my grandfather, but he wasn't just an active hunter like we think of hunting. And I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, and my childhood was predominantly barefoot and fishing poles and catching turtles and actually selling turtles, selling snapping turtles through grade school. And those little green turtles, I'd carry a pocket full of little green turtles to elementary school and get 25 or 50 cents worth of lunch money for each little turtle I could sell.
Well, they're cute as a button. I mean, those things are cute little turtles. You can sell them to probably girls.
Oh yeah, but the hard ones. I think I really learned a lot about sales. Was trying to sell their little baby snapping turtle because they were ugly. They look like a little cow patty, and how I would sell them was if you lay them on their back, their neck's long enough they can roll back over. And that's the trick I would show to induce people to buy this little snapping turtle. And but anyway, it's my grandfather was a dove hunter, and that was a big deal in the Mississippi Delta, and that's really defined the hunting growing up. For as long as I can remember, Labor Day weekend, going out 2 or 3 times as a dove hunter, and really and truly, I guess into high school, got into deer hunting a little bit, got into doing some other things, but it really wasn't until I was just out of high school, about 18, 19 years old, that I went duck hunting for the first time. And it really wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I went real duck hunting, with decoys and calls. And the limit was just 2 mallards. We were hunting public Arkansas timber with some men, and got invited along with some college buddies, and it just, the rest was history. I fell in love with it. And I'll tell you, when I went to Mississippi State University, a little bit later than most folks, but when I went, I wanted to be a deer biologist. Ended up going down to South Texas, working on an amazing 107,000 acre ranch, free range, for one of the foremost whitetail deer biologists in the state of Texas at the time, making $500 a month, to just do do grunt work and go out and shoot antlerless deer, and that was part of the job description. Some of the stuff we did, but we shot so many antlerless deer, it really kind of became work. That dirty word we were talking about earlier, and but every time we dropped a disc to plant food plots, that the doves would just swarm in. And every time the wind blew from the north from about August through December, new ducks would show up. And so I started kind of finding some recreational interest outside of deer hunting. But by the time I went on that real hunt in college, I was kind of shot out on deer and found a new passion to sink my teeth into that I really didn't know a lot about. Didn't know a lot about the sport, didn't know a lot about the species. And first one thing and another, here I am, much older guy, and been chasing ducks all over the world for the past 30 years.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's crazy. Just, I mean, how you can think that you have this plan for your life, and then next thing you know, all right, and like you said, a fork in the road, and you followed it.
Well, all I wanted to do when I got out of college, I went to college in wildlife and forestry, and all I wanted to do was be work for refuges. That's what I wanted to do, and through a lot of hard work and determination, and I landed a job with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in refuges as a forester covering north half of Mississippi, and then got into refuge management series briefly before deciding that wasn't my cup of tea. I went to work for U.S. Department of Agriculture covering a fourth of the state, handling forestry resources, and thought I kind of had it figured out. I'd kind of doing what I wanted to do, and went on a really, really bad hunt. And I booked a hunt, a really, really, really bad hunt, and said, there's got to be more to this. And one day an outfitter up in Canada invited me to be a booking agent. I'm like, what the hell's a booking agent? I'm a foreigner, but it kind of explained it. It started with just one hunt, his, and one thing and another, like I say, 5 or 6 years later, stepped off. I was at a soccer game. My kids were belt high, playing soccer, where you clapping hands and yelling, kick the ball, that age and everything else, and I didn't know what was going on out there on the soccer field other than kick the damn ball, right? I mean, I didn't grow up playing soccer, and but anyway, one time I was on the phone talking to somebody, and when I hung up, one of my buddies listened to me, says, this was April, May, whatever it was, and he goes, Ramsey, it ain't duck season. And to which my wife looked up and said, "Oh, it's duck season somewhere," and that became our slogan. That became our our motto. Part of our company brand is it's duck season somewhere. I'll get back in Thanksgiving. January comes along. I'm in North America primarily, but to continue on one of the first questions about where the year takes you. I've taken you from September through Thanksgiving. Now we're in January. Well, February is Mexico, Guatemala, chasing spring snows if you need to. You can go all the way up through May. I was up to about the first or second week of May. I was up in Canada this year shooting spring snow, shooting snow geese. September, October, April, May in Canada is some of the best snow goose hunting on earth. And people say, well, I don't like those white birds. Bullshit. Anybody that likes to waterfowl hunt likes to shoot decoy and snow geese.
Yeah.
And besides that, I think they're the best eating thing on the prairie. And then now we're back May through August. We're back in the southern hemisphere, Africa, New Zealand. It's a big world full of birds. We usually run over in for the past several years. Now we've got a little hunt called Azerbaijan, which is 8-10 miles from Iran at times where we're hunting, safe and stable and nice and good and interesting and cultural, and a lot of familiar species as well as some very interesting species, which brings up a good point. I chase a lot of species around the world. I keep up with subspecies, not just species. There's 165 ducks and geese and swans worldwide. and I really don't know what the final count is on what is, by the time you subtract endangered and threatened and places maybe in the world you just can't access. I'm gonna say I'm getting pretty dang close to having gotten all. I can think of 10 or 15 species, subspecies worldwide that are huntable if I can just get to them and find them and everything else. But I have nonetheless shot 127 subspecies.
Wow.
You know, there's 5 subspecies of cinnamon teal. There's 2 subspecies of black-bellied whistling duck. There's 8 species of swans. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's 2 subspecies of specks. And you know, a lot of people talk about the 41 in North America. I count 58. You know, back when I was a young man, there was 11 Canada geese races. Now they've split it into 2 main categories, cacklers. I believe there's 4 of those. Canadas, there's 7. Well, I'm 2 away from having all the 11 subspecies. And you know what? Who cares? Well, it just gives me something to keep climbing for.
Yeah.
You know, it gives me something. And what I learned somewhere along the way, because I've got too much in a small space, you know, and collecting dust, because nothing attracts every dust particle in the universe like a stuffed bird. And
yep.
But one thing I realized is, you know, I really ain't chasing those. I really am not chasing species. Yes, last year in South Africa there was 1 species of bird I was after. I'd been after him for years since going to South Africa the first time. It's called a makoa duck. One of my outfitters has never seen one. His daddy hadn't seen one in 20 years. The other outfitter said he'd keep an eye out. He had never seen one that he could recall. Couldn't find them. And last year I flew over a couple of days early to save on some airfare and get my body clock adjusted. Thinking I was going to sleep in for 2 days. He calls up and says, I'll pick you up at 9 in the morning. I found them. And a makoa duck is just a it's a stiff-tailed duck like a ruddy duck.
Yeah. Tony just pulled up a picture.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this going, what in the hell is that?
if you take Africa for example, the little pygmy goose, the Hottentot teal, the big geese, the African black duck, the African yellow-billed duck, the makoa duck. It's how those species differentiate into different habitats. You know, you got your agricultural fields. Well, then you start chasing a Pacific black duck that's a mallard-like subspecies, except for the fact they call them river ducks. And by river, they mean knee-deep creeks or rapids or something. There's clear water running forever through this dry area. They're very territorial. So if a spotter or somebody says, yeah, there's a pair over on this river, well, he could be covering a 2-mile stretch. And if you're walking along, sneaking along, trying to find this bird, because he's not going to decoy. You know, if you're trying to find him, it's just like playing around 18 holes golf. You're walking and walking.
Wow.
Goodness.
Till this bird jumps up, and I 6 miles into it, a pair of yellow-billed ducks gets out, and you go, well, I'm fixing to walk a mile, because I know those black ducks aren't going to let anybody else horn in on them. So you keep walking. You know, versus the pygmy goose, which is actually a perching duck. It's recognized as the quote smallest goose, unquote, in the world. It's actually a perching duck. His fidelity is for lily pads. Well, I'm in Africa. How many lily pads do you think is in Africa? Not many.
Yeah.
And when you find the lily pads, now you're trying to find this tiny little quarter-pound bird, and that blends in perfectly with lily pads, and you're trying to find them in lily pads. You know, so what I'm saying is, the species is important, but to me, it's important as a beacon of where on Earth it takes you and what you get to experience. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what I've come to appreciate most about the species thing. I got a book I keep, check. I've got this species now, but it's the memories and all the different little nuances and crooks and crannies and crevices around Earth that those birds take you to. And you know, if you go down to Argentina and you're shooting, I spend a lot of time down in Argentina, but you know, you've got the rosy-billed pochard, you've got the black-headed ducks. They're deeper, bigger water ducks, and then you've got your whistling ducks that like the mud flats or submerged vegetation. Then you've got some of your various little teal that like the shallow water. And, you know, to really nail all those species over time in a wild environment, you've got to encounter a lot of different habitat types.
Sure.
And so instead of just going to boom, this habitat type for a 5-day period and said, oh, I've seen Argentina. No, you hadn't. That'd be like coming to Mississippi and hunting a rice field, said, oh, I've seen America. No, you haven't.
Yeah, bullshit.
You know, there's a lot. There's a lot to it. And so that's just that's my game. That's what I get into in the whole species thing. It's not a contest. I wouldn't dare apply for an award or anything else. It's my list.
Sure.
You know, one of the most visited pages at getducks.com, which is 3,800 Google index pages deep now, is what I call our North American waterfowl list, where I've got all 58 subspecies named. Mm-hmm. And in the instance that we've got a hunt through a U.S. affiliate or Canadian affiliate that offers that hunt, you can click the button and it'll show you where it is. But it's like I try to point out, you know, if collecting awards and recognition for what you do is important to you, well, by all means do it. But you know, it really ain't a contest. Hunting is not a contest.
Right.
It's a very personal thing. Mm-hmm. You know, over the course of your lifetime, Tristan, you're a young man. Mm-hmm. Between now and the time you age out, that's a long journey. You know what I'm saying? And it's okay if you come to a fork in the road. Well, I thought I wanted to collect awards, but I decided I want to do something different, or vice versa. That's okay. But the whole point I try to make is it's a personal event. If you want to collect 41, if you want to collect 50, if you want to collect 58, who cares? Just go out and do it, man. It's such a great, just North America beyond our backyards is amazing. Yeah. I know I'm not telling y'all nothing, being as you live down in Georgia. Yep. You know, well, I live in Mississippi, a couple states over. It's still, the world is so much bigger than our backyards, especially the world of duck hunting.
Oh, absolutely. And I know we kind of got into this on the last time we had you on, but one of the things that, you know, you were talking about is as far as, you know, people, whatever you love to do, whatever that thing is, you know, as far as duck hunting or any kind of hunting, you know, with us, it's just that it's kind of like hunting in areas that you never know what you're going to get is kind of my favorite thing, is just, you know, versus a hunt that, you know, it's all going to be greenheads, which that's fun too. But, you know, it's just everybody has their own thing that they love and what draws them to the outdoors, you know.
Greenhead mallards they're a very circumpolar species. Anywhere that the habitat exists in the northern hemisphere, mallards exist. Mm-hmm. I've shot them in Azerbaijan. I've shot them in Russia. I've shot them Pakistan, Mongolia, everywhere that I've hunted in the northern hemisphere. And to a bird, I've never seen a mallard duck that my heart didn't skip a beat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he's the reason I carry a duck call. Yeah. Because if you see one, they like to play by the rules. Hell, they wrote the rule book that we consider duck hunting.
Yep, that's for sure.
You got that right.
You know, you were talking about you're getting into a little bit about Argentina earlier, and I wanted to jump back into that and, you know, talk about just your recent trip, you know, everything that went on during it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to deep dive into this, Ramsey. This is some great stuff, and thank you. You know, I'm going to give you the credit here for, you know, that's one thing that makes a great guest on a podcast is when you can say, hey, we're open to your suggestions. You know, we want to talk about what you want to talk about, and Ramsey wanted to dive into this a little bit, and as soon as he hit me with it, I was just like, I'm humbled to death because I want to hear about this. And there's a lot to talk about with this Argentina trip. And man, can you take us from just like, I mean, showing up day one, you know, packing out, going out there and kind of just walk us through it, man. I mean,
sure, man. I mean, but it's not a, you know, here's a big distinction for anybody listening that goes to Argentina or would call us to go to Argentina, please, versus myself. Is when my clients go, be it 3 days or 30 days, they're clients. They get the client experience. Mm-hmm. And even though it kind of sort of looks like that on our social media, because I am going out hunting and interacting with the clients and everything else, I really ain't. There's a lot. It's just, it comes with the job, and there's a lot of back end that goes with the job. And I did tell you we've been doing this for 20 years. We've been working down in Argentina for 17 or 18 years. And, there's a lot of outfitters. But and I'm just going to throw it out there like this. You go to a show, you see an outfitter, or you see a hunt come up for auction, or you open a magazine or TV, and, I'm down here hunting with so-and-so. There's a lot of outfitters. Just imagine with me that we were instead in Argentina, and we were looking at ads or going to shows and buying U.S. hunts. Mm-hmm. And just imagine you open up this beautiful ad and it's this great hunt in Georgia, mm-hmm. okay, or West Virginia, yeah, somewhere that's not just the apex mm-hmm. of what the best American duck hunting could be.
Sure.
And there's a lot of outfitters down there, and we have spent the last nearly 20 years going down and putting actual boots on the ground. I have visited maybe 100 outfitters over the past 20 years, a lot. And right now, if you look at our offerings, for example, I've got 4 hunts listed. One is a Disneyland-like experience called Las Flores. It's a top, absolute, high-volume ducks, nothing but ducks. So help me God, duck hunt. Everybody loves it. It runs like oil. And they do.
You might even see Donald Duck.
Well, yeah, but a lot of a lot of outfitters in Argentina apply bait. It is legal, and a lot of them do it. Some of them do it better than others. Just because you're dumping corn out don't mean it's going to be a high quality hunt. There's a lot more management that goes into it than just that. If you're going to go to Argentina, even if you are the biggest diehard duck hunter on God's earth, why not shoot decoying pigeons? Why not shoot doves? So we've got a couple of combo hunts. And then for the past 12, 15 years, we've carried a hunt, high volume also, but.
Do you want coffee that doesn't suck? Get the Duck. Dirty Duck coffee is made specifically for the waterfowl enthusiast. Enjoy flavors like Morning Wood, Dark Dynasty, Cinnamon Teal Snickerdoodle, and First Flight to unlock the flavor that you'll enjoy in the blind for years to come. Our friends at Dirty Duck Coffee Company are now offering all Zero Duck 30 followers a 15% discount when you use code ZeroDuck15 on your next order.
It's a completely wild and remote hunt. And unfortunately for us, Rio Salado, we no longer sell that hunt, and it's just, I've seen it over the past 20 years in the United States, in Canada, throughout the world. Things happen. Nothing stays the same. There's mm-hmm. always changes, right?
Right.
It just changes in marriages. There's changes in business. There's changes with work, whatever. There's a million different reasons things change. And, 2 years of COVID followed by 2 years of drought. The wheels just came off. And to sum it up, without getting too long into it, it's just, back in late March, early April, it's like somebody tossed a grenade in my lap. And that was that. It was just, I just can't venture our reputation and your time and your money to that hunt. Mm-hmm. And so, I've been working with them for 12 or 13 years. I've been working with a lot of my outfits down there for over a decade. And so every year when I go down, I host hunts and I go out, I've got a hosted hunt at this lodge or a hosted hunt at that lodge. So I'm there at the lodge, I'm with the clients, I'm going through the motions. And when the clients are in bed or the clients are hunting, I'm in the back end doing business just to keep my finger on the pulse, to make sure this hunt's still what it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm always going out and visiting new locations, which I don't visit as many new locations as I did 15, 20 years ago because I visited a lot of them already. Mm-hmm. And they're not on Get Ducks. And not to say there's some great hunts. You might have to go have a good time because a lot of great hunts compared to what we think of as duck hunting down here, but they're not the best that Argentina represents. And, if you're going to spend $1 to $1, apple to apples, why not go on the best hunt?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
if you're going to spend the same amount of money and time and fly and do all that stuff, why not go on the best that Argentina has to offer?
Well,
This particular year, I started off with Las Flores, amazing hunt. I left and we had a couple strip on a hosted hunt. That La Paz hunt that we represent just naturally, for a lot of different reasons, just location, the amenities, and everything else, it just really lends itself to having a house full of non-hunting spouses. It's perfect. They went on wine tours. They they went shopping. They did all kinds of fun stuff while we were out getting sore shoulders. Not me, but the clients. And after a period of jumping around like that, I spent, I don't know, a couple of weeks going to different provinces and just meeting new outfitters. And there was one particular hunt that I had been, the operator had reached out through one of my associates down in Argentina for several years, invited me to come visit. Well, it didn't fit. I didn't need it. I didn't want it. I had what I needed until Salado fell out of the lineup. Now I needed me another pitcher, right? It's just like baseball. I mean, if somebody's on the injury reserve or somebody ain't playing no more, I need somebody else to fill the spot. So I went down there. Honestly, I wasn't expecting a lot. I don't have any expectations when I go to visit a new outfitter, but it ain't much. And it blew me away. It absolutely blew me away. It's like I've explained to a lot of clients. It's not on the web page yet. It's going to be the Paranal River Delta hunt, but just imagine millions of acres, and we drive 3 or 4 hours out of town. We get in a boat, and we drive an hour and a half, and step off onto the mothership, which is camp. And you are smack in the middle of your 15, 20 miles from the nearest dirt road, let alone paved road.
that is my kind of shit right there.
And it's high volume ducks in the morning, good volume ducks in the afternoon, or go golden dorado fishing. And
Wow.
and I knew by the second night. So got there the first night, had a great dinner, drank some wine, went to bed, got up, had a great day. And I knew at dinner the second night, this hunt was going to be something. Well, by dinner the third night, I'd already had bookings. Now, understand, this is just me sharing stuff in social media and my email and my text messages with a lot of clients. I woke up one morning, had 2.5, 3 dozen text messages.
Wow.
And I realized that this hunt is going to be absolutely F-bomb legend. It's going to be.
Yes.
And it's going to be one of those hunts. And then I went over to the mountains. You know, when you talk to a lot of especially younger guys about pigeon hunting, they think of, you know, going out to Papaw's barn and shooting pigeons, or dove hunting, an old city pigeon comes by, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're down in Argentina. They have in places vibrant populations of wild picazura and mostly spot wing pigeons, and it is one of the most addictive hunts I've ever done. I'm not going to say I like it better than ducks, 'cause I'm a duck hunter, but second only to ducks. And after 3 or 4 weeks of shooting ducks, hell yeah, I'm all about shooting decoy pigeons. And it's like duck hunting with hiking boots, and I just cannot get enough of it. And so, you know, like our combo hunt, La Paz, it's ducks, high volume doves, pigeons, perdees. Most of the clients, not all, is completely optional because it's a lot of flex in that program. A lot of them like to go out and catch golden dorado. And so I've also gone and explored what might be a pretty good pigeon and dove hunt for people that want to pull the trigger a lot more than you're going to do on duck hunts. I've got that option too.
Nice.
So that was basically my summer, was looping around. One thing that got a lot of attention in social media, because I always tell these stories, right? I do that Instagram stories as we're going. I post 3 or 4 times a week, kind of some of the highlight reels and photos and stuff like that. But, you know, they do things differently in other parts of the world. there's no ATVs, there's no Polaris Rangers, there's not that kind of stuff down there. So one of my favorite places to hunt up in northern Argentina, there at La Paz, you access by horseback.
That's neat.
We get up in the morning, we eat breakfast, we drive 30 minutes outside town, we meet the staff, and like I say, I know them all. They don't. None of them speak any English. They're all gaucho may not be the exact word to use, but some of them, it's like this family. One little old lady had 6 sons and 6 daughters, and they all live in a little stretch of neighborhood out in the middle of nowhere, 3 or 4 houses. And now there's kids and grandkids and great grandkids, and the kids and grandkids are primarily our guide staff. They work on that as a gaucho. They commercial fish in the nearby river, and they live very, very close to the land, because they're in it all day, every day. And so it's such a cool hunting experience when because just imagine, I couldn't tell you how many acres it is. All I know is from where we park the truck to the river is 3 miles across, at a glance, pasture with shin deep water that no human being can walk far in. So you saddle up on horses, and it's got the traditional Argentine farm saddle is like a blanket or foam with like a wooden saddle over which they put a wool blanket, and they ride their stirrups a little higher than we do, and but still crawl up on your horse and off into the dark you go. And slide off into your duck blind, and it just makes for one hell of a huge adventure. Char Dog, I was a little worried, and what I noticed her doing, she caught on real quick. What I noticed her doing is say the 3 of us and our 3 guides all leave the parking place together, and then we're going to start forking off and going. I would just see, we don't use a head beam when we're on the horse, because you can see the water glistening out there. They know where they're going. I'm following along. And I'd catch a glimpse of old Char Dog or hear her splashing around through us. What I see her do is she might run off that direction and come back, run off that direction and come back. But I see her make a pass and just with her nose, be sure she knew where I was.
That's
And
cool.
think of all the land that dog has put paws on. I mean,
oh my gosh.
I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but this just hit my mind.
Yeah.
What? I mean, wow.
There's no
That's all I
telling.
can say.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'll tell you this. I think the furthest ride we did one day, and boy, it was worth every footstep, was we rode for about an hour to go to this little lagoon way back by the river, just me and somebody else. And, so let's just say that was 3 miles. Well, she probably ran 9. Because she don't just follow behind. She wants to go sniff and find, and she hears ducks flying and stuff. And one of the craziest things about it was the number of ducks she found on the way out or something. I don't know if they were crippled from another hunt. I don't know if that was something we didn't see. She developed a habit this summer down there from just hunting so much. One I remember in particular was myself and one of the older guides. I've been hunting with him for 15 years. I was hunting with him that week. We had a great little hunt for teal, real shallow water. And I remember sailing one about 200 yards away, and it went down kind of crippled, right? Well, it was so fast and furious. We're keeping her busy picking up what we could mark, see, and we were knocking down. And we hit the limit on the clicker, and 25 duck limit. And I was sitting there getting stuff strapped up. The guy had walked off to go get something, and then he was picking up decoys and doing stuff. We were sitting there just kind of post-hunt, organizing for the ride out. And about that time, he whistled, "Senor, look, a key," he says, "a key here." And I look up, and here comes Char, 200 yards away, running full steam at me with that crippled bird.
Wow.
How she remembered that bird, how she remembered that duck for an hour, I'll never know. But I never sent her on it. I never sent her on it because I didn't want her fiddle farting around, and when with the heat of things. Because when she's out, I won't shoot.
Mm-hmm.
If she can count pretty good, so say you knock down 3 or 4, she knows where them birds are, and she's trained to go to the last mark. Well, if she's on mark number 2 or 3, and you all of a sudden, or she's heading toward the mark or trying to hunt up mark number 1 or 2, and you all of a sudden shoot over her and knock down another one, well, it's kind of a lot to ask her to remember. So when she's out hunting, I don't shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was, and on that same hunt, we were coming out, and we got about 300 or 400 yards away from the scene of action. Now we're going completely other direction, and I just happened. She was. I didn't see her for a little bit. We were going through some brush, and next time I saw her, she had another duck in her mouth, very much alive. Well, I wasn't about to climb off that horse because it's a chore for an old man to get up on a gaucho horse, and so she carried it for a little while before we did get off and take it from her. And but she's just she has covered some ground and seen some world now. I'm gonna tell you, and for me personally, the dog is so integral to it. I just really, I can't carry her to Africa. I can't carry her to parts of the Muslim world. I would carry her to Azerbaijan, except for the fact the mud in places is extremely bottomless, and so if she got out and got in a bind, I couldn't get to her. And the other complicating factor is a lot of the vegetation is Phragmites, which is a very brittle, very rigid grass that guaranteed is going to puncture her foot or put an eye out. So wow. I don't bring her there. But anywhere else that I can bring her, she is a service animal. She travels extremely well, and she's got 2 gears: laying at your feet, out of the way, nobody knows she's there, to full steam ahead across the water trying to catch that duck.
Wow.
And so she travels good. And she does get to see a lot of country. She's been to, just in the last year, 4 Canadian provinces, 4 American flyways. A good friend of mine up in Maine invited me to come up. We hunted near a lighthouse point. She picked up some eiders that morning. That little dog, she's 48 pounds, never looked so small in her life as coming in with an eider in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow.
And Guatemala, Mexico, and on down into Argentina. That was her second trip to Argentina, by the way.
So one thing, while we're on this topic, and you just mentioned kind of where I was going to go with.
Our partners at Huntwise are offering an exclusive discount for Zero Duck 30 followers. As an elite member, some of the features you'll immediately gain access to are Huntcast, Windcast, peak kill times, property lines, owner information and phone lookup, 250 map layers, unlimited offline maps, 3D maps, social media, and on top of it all, save up to 50% off some of the top hunting brands in the industry. Download and explore the #1 hunting tool set today and save 20% by using code DUCK30.
This with her looking so small at that point is I hear from our buddies that are outfitters and Arkansas per se, just the 60 days on a dog and just the managing their weight and trying to keep weight on them and stuff like that. What do you do to I'd imagine it's a full-time job in and of itself, just managing, making sure Char's eating enough food.
It is, and my trainer, he tells me all the time, and he's only half kidding. He says she's overworked and underfed, and and she'll strip on down to little or nothing. She got real sheer, because now I'll start off with as much good dog food as I can carry, and I can find some pretty good dog food down in Argentina. But inevitably she's going to eat some dog food that is just run-of-the-mill dog food. It's hard to keep. And you know what? I was down in about 3 weeks ago. I was down in Argentina when my wife called and told me her predecessor, old Coop the chicken dog, had passed. She was 12 years old. We were expecting it. She wasn't going to live forever. She was having some health issues, and she was the dog that would eat until she exploded. And it just so happens that on her last day, my wife was going to bring her inside. They were doing some work in the backyard. My wife was going to bring her inside in the air conditioning. And while she got distracted, she heard something, went in there, of course, dog's head. She'd been eating dog food for 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And she just wouldn't quit eating. And about an hour or two later, it was her time. Took her to the vet, and she was dead. And
Wow.
it had nothing to do with her eating. So I took consolation in the fact that old dog died fat and happy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Thank goodness. That's a good way for a dog to go.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie won't do that. She'll get into something. Don't get me wrong, but one thing I've learned is when I'm hunting her, whether I'm hunting her once a day or twice a day, I feed her in the morning. I feed her right when we get in from hunting,
mm-hmm.
and then I try to feed her another little bit at night. And it really works out to just a little bit more than her normal at-home ration, which is about 3 measured cups. But and of course now if she wants to eat 5, I'll let her.
Mm-hmm.
But she won't. I have a hard time. I have to induce her to eat even all her rations, by just putting warm water on it or a little chicken broth, and just really getting her to eat and maintain her energy levels, and carry her weight a little bit. So it can be daunting.
Yeah.
And the other thing I do, and I think it is what it is, but we've all had those duck dogs that we hunt hard during duck season, and then for the rest of its year, it gets the next 10 months off to be a couch potato.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's real tough and unreasonable to expect a 5 or 6 year old couch potato to perform peak.
Right.
And so what I do with her, we hunt a lot. If I'm hunting, chances are she's hunting too. And I'm not going to take her out Labor Day weekend for doves and nothing dangerous like that. But assuming I'm duck or goose hunting or swan hunting, she's with me. And then on the trips like Africa, can't bring her to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
They've just got very daunting, insane regulations. It's just, she can't go to Africa. I'm not going to take her to Azerbaijan.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than just let her sit at home for 5 or 6 weeks, I take her to the trainer, and she's master title. She can do them 400-yard blinds and marks and all that big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She don't want to no more. She wants to play my game. So, but he takes her out for 30 days. He takes her out. She goes through the motions, and when I pick her back up, she's fit and fiddle. You know what I'm saying? A body in motion stays in motion. So,
yeah.
It's a lot to expect a dog to perform all the time if you let it get out of shape. She'll have gotten 3 weeks off since Argentina, and she's caught up on her weight, and she's got to rest a little bit, let the summer catch up and sink in, and I guess next Monday I'm gonna take her down to the trainer for 6 weeks. Not the trainer, just a runner. Just to keep her in peak performance. I think that's the 2 things. That's the best thing I can do is feed her throughout the day, ad libitum, but she ain't the dog that'll eat too much, and then keep her in great shape.
I think that's a really great and kind of interesting point for a couple of reasons. One, they always, you're a testament to it, and a lot of folks are, is, you keep like you said, a body in motion stays in motion, and you always see not always, but every once in a while you'll see the 85-year-old guy out there playing tennis or whatever, and it's like,
yeah,
because he keeps going, and those dogs are really, and in a way, I mean, you can kind of compare it to a professional athlete, and I mean, a professional athlete trains all year round, so I think it's an interesting point.
And it's trying to it's I'm big on burnout. I don't want to get burnt out because I love what I do.
Uh-huh.
So I go spend 2 months down in Argentina. Well, here's the deal. Most of our hunts are Monday through Friday or Monday afternoon through Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. And I don't hunt Saturday afternoons or all day Saturday, depending on what my schedule is. And I don't hunt on Sundays. Mm-hmm. Now I'm busy with clients. We're doing transfers. Maybe like this year, I caught a couple of days off, just completely off in addition to that. and I don't. So I take a couple of days off a week myself.
Mm-hmm.
She gets those days off, and then she gets a lot of afternoons off. If we go dove hunting, man, there's no way I'm gonna let that dog burn herself out on a bunch of doves. So we may go out and I may go shoot 6 or 7 boxes of doves and let her pick up 40.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We may go shoot 80 pigeons over the course of a day. That's not going to hurt her any. But she gets breaks along the way, and it's important that she have that for 2 reasons: maintain her fitness and her health, but also still stay hungry and wanting those birds, same as me.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. One thing we had, here on the outline is just, at anti-hunter, feedback on posts. And I see it all the time on our YouTube channel or different other things. I'm sure it's tenfold with you, Ramsey, but just with the following you have, just different, people that send crazy messages. And I just think it's an interesting thing we should get into. And another great point that you brought up to have on tonight.
Well, you guys interacted on a post about that, right? Or something? Wasn't there something?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
What were you saying, Tristan?
So, the whole point about the anti-hunter feedback on posts and things like that, which honestly, your documentary was a great kind of testament to how you do such a great job of painting hunting in a great light,
Mm-hmm.
And that was just another point that you brought up that would be an interesting thing to talk about tonight. And I just want to get into that a little bit, anti-hunter feedback.
Well, you talked about that documentary. I'm gonna start there. It's like when somebody asks me a question, I'm bad about winding up before I throw the pitch, and so I'll start. Not my documentary, but it's one hell of a incredible, from the cinematography to the narrative and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
There's an ongoing documentary on PBS called Human Footprint. And it's the long and the short of it is about how humanity, the footprint we leave on the world, we change the world.
Mm-hmm.
We change our environment. We respond to those changes by changing the environment again.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're a human, whether you're a vegetarian or a hunter or a city dweller or living in a country farm, it doesn't matter. We leave a footprint.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's just how we are. It's just part of the way the world's designed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a call from a guy, Sean Weaver's his name, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Heck of a good guy.
We've had him on, actually.
Heck of a great guy. He called me and said, "Are you going to be in Eastern Maryland?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I want to introduce you to these people. They might want to ask you a few questions." Well, it ends up, his situation had changed at the time, and I ended up taking a PBS documentary crew out duck hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a tad daunting because news alert, public broadcasting is not necessarily the bastion of conservative mindset. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so I was a little guarded but went out and they did episode 2 of a 6-part series they're working on. It was called Predators. And they did one on something about big game hunting, whaling, the old market hunting days. They brought me in as a modern duck hunter for some reason. And they did one on something else along the way. It was very, very interesting the way they pieced it together over about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But I was real pleased. And I found myself, because the host and the camera crew are not hunters.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say they're anti-hunters, because they're not.
Right.
But one of them asked me the question, how can you love nature and then come out and kill it?
Mm-hmm.
How can you say I love ducks and then go out and shoot it? Well, I mean, really and truly in our heart of hearts, we should all be asking ourselves that question.
Mm-hmm.
And the older I get, I find myself, because like he says, I love this, but I don't see myself loving it the way you do, coming out and pulling the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not being critical of that act. It's just for him. Now just try to think, put yourself in his shoes. And I've asked myself as I get older, what is it? Why am I programmed to go out and love nature and start off in wildlife and forestry and conservation and all this stuff, and yet I choose to go out and pull the trigger and kill it still in the year 2023.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It ain't worth dwelling on too much because I'm gonna go out and duck hunt, right?
Yeah.
But I saw it as an opportunity to speak to a lot of the people that do not hunt or are anti-hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the reason that's so important to me is because in social media, when you put yourself out there like we do
Mm-hmm.
on podcast, on social media, on YouTube, that the world's a big place, and you're putting yourself out there, understanding that we hunters, especially recreational hunters, I'm not talking about the third world countries that are still out eating bushmeat daily,
Mm-hmm.
but we third world country hunters, I mean, we sport hunters are a dwindling minority, and it invites comments. And Argentina, for example, well, I'll start with Argentina because we were just talking about Argentina. You know, there's a big anti-hunting movement in Argentina to shut. It started off the duck seasons. Ducks are just too easy. Too few people duck hunt, or so few people relative to hunters in general duck hunt. You can take that beautiful little silvertail, hold them up, and if somebody doesn't hunt, heck yeah, they want to stop killing that pretty bird.
Mm-hmm.
Australia used the same ploy. And last year, after the duck season, some, not all, not nearly all, some of the outfitters got together, worked through some government channels, and organized an official count. The government doesn't count ducks. The government doesn't have any freaking idea what they've got in wildlife resource in that country. And to justify opening the season and a continuance of duck hunting, and since it kicked off last year, it went from duck hunting to all hunting for indigenous and non-indigenous, and all hunting they're trying to shut down in Argentina.
Wow. So
the outfitters went out and counted, and the way they did it is the government said, okay, y'all have to survey these areas that we picked. Y'all are willing to pay for it, so go ahead and do it, but a government representative must be with you so you don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
Then they gave all the data back to the government. The government crunched the numbers, and in just one province, Buenos Aires province, the low end of the interval based on that scientific survey was 14.5 million ducks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're talking about one province. That's a significant portion of the number of ducks in North America around which a multi-billion-dollar economy has been built.
Wow.
Okay.
Holy cow.
So it's kind of hard to shut that down
Mm-hmm.
when you can't say there's no ducks now, because now we've proven there's ducks.
Mm-hmm.
And but there's a lot of anti-hunting going on, and a lot of the outfitters are becoming sensitive, like don't be posting or don't be doing this or don't be doing that. And we're talking about a minority,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but they're a very powerful minority, same as they are here in the States. Australia is fixing to probably lose their duck season. Right now, it's a very hotly contested item in the Victoria province, where there is no governmental count, there is no governmental, there's none of the scientific parameters we've got here for managing a resource
Mm-hmm.
population for sustained yield. It's purely emotion, it's purely political. And despite it being a wet year and thought to be a lot of ducks, they were cut from 10 to 4 ducks this year, cut from 70 or 80 days to 30 days.
Wow.
And it seems to be generally accepted. Now they're over there fighting tooth and nail, buddy, like we can't imagine.
Yeah.
But I forecast that sooner than later, they're going to close the season in Australia. And which is why I'm taking an emergency trip kind of sort of over to Australia this year. There's a couple of species of geese I'd still like to hunt. I hope to go over in November. I hope to go back in January
Mm-hmm.
and kill that last one, because once Victoria province closes, the rest of the country is going to fall like dominoes.
Mm.
And it seems inevitable. there could be a silver bullet somewhere along the way, but it seems inevitable. Now, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when it finally ceases. And I've been collecting over in Africa. I've been collecting some genetic data for a scientist over in Texas named Phil Lavretsky.
Mm-hmm.
African yellow bills and African black ducks, from which a lot of papers have been written because they're a mallard-like species.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually building an artificial intelligence app. He showed me the beta version at convention recently based on the measurements and the data I collected on the African yellow bills, which the males and females are identical looking. There's very subtle differences like bill length or body weight that differentiates them statistically, but in the air, there ain't much difference. I mean, in hand, there ain't much. Somebody that's collected more than anybody else on God's earth and held a bunch of them pursuant to this study, there ain't no difference. And it's a very, very similar bird. And so he says, now that we've got this out of the way, I really need to start working on some of these other world species, these other mallard complex type species. What about Pacific black duck? To which I said, Phil, if they shut the season down, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you can't legally hunt them, how in the world are we going to collect them?
Right.
And I said, but I'm going in November to shoot magpie geese, the limit 7 geese and 10 Pacific black ducks a day. Why don't you join me? And he says, I will. And then I said to myself, I made a few phone calls down to Australia. And I said, can y'all set aside 10 or 15 or 20 frozen specimens of these other species of birds you're still allowed to hunt? And he said, yeah. So if everything goes as planned, Dr. Lavretsky's now reached out to UC Davis, the Smithsonian, a lot of other resources. And last I talked to him, it looks like it's going to be myself and 4 U.S. scientists from different places going to meet some scientists over in Australia. And we're going to hunt. Some of them are showing up just to collect all that data. We've got that's a lot of birds. It's going to be a whole lot of birds to process. I've hired a cameraman. I want to document hunting the magpie geese up in Northwest Territories, the Northern Territory, but I also want to depict hunters and scientists racing the clock to collect valuable genetic data before the damn anti shut it down.
Right.
Ramsey, let me interrupt here. I've got a interesting perception or question, I guess, and that is with the data that we have on the snow goose population. And a lot of people don't realize this about snow geese is while we have these conservation seasons, there's certain groups or flights of geese that they're all across the northern hemisphere that come through the west coast, the east coast, the central flyway, Atlantic flyway, Mississippi flyway, etc. I just have to say that facts show that when you don't harvest enough of an animal, and I'm talking even tying in the anti-hunters and all this stuff to this part, is, if we don't harvest enough of an animal, disease sets in, you start to have starvation issues, overeating of farmland, all these different things that we can spin down this rabbit hole about. Is there any data that they're arming themselves with, arrows in their quiver that maybe the U.S. biologists?
No. From what I've gathered, talking to a lot of waterfowl biologists on our podcast and just in private conversations, regulated harvest does not impact one way or the other migratory bird populations. It doesn't impact snow geese. It doesn't impact ducks. Overharvest can, but not regulated harvest. It has virtually no impact on bird populations. Habitat, conditions, and other factors are driving it. And, you use snow geese for an example. They were hunted under conservation order since when? In 98, 99. And their population is approximately half. And we're not talking about snow geese in general. We're talking about the mid-continent population.
Yeah.
And their population is now just a little under half of what it was estimated to be when the conservation order was incepted, but it has nothing whatsoever to do with conservation conservation season related harvest. It has more to do with, as it was explained to me by a scientist and Arctic goose biologist, their breeding area where they're nesting has increased about 1 or 2 centigrade. And whereas traditionally the snow geese fly out with fat reserves, there's still ice on the ground when they build their nest, sit on their eggs, little fuzz balls hatch underneath them. And about the time them fuzz balls are ready to walk out from under mama and start clipping grass, it coincides with when the ice has melted, the grass has started to green, and the nitrogen is flushing through those plants.
Mm.
And what they're seeing now is that because of environmental change, the grass is the ice is melting a couple of weeks earlier, the nitrogen's flushing a couple of weeks earlier, and and the geese are hitting it after that big nitrogen flush, and their survivability is not what it could be.
Wow.
And it's just kind of gotten out of, it'll get synced up. That's the way nature is, checks and balances. It'll sync up. So there's I don't believe that with hunting, I believe that when you start looking at conservation order type snow goose hunting or an over an abundance of geese, like in the Netherlands, the reason you use hunting at all as a tool is because you can. You're powerless against anything else. Follow what I'm saying? You really can't.
We can't match what God's doing out there.
Yeah, but to get back on the anti-hunting business, there's a lot of anti-hunters out there, and when you put yourself out there, you invite it. And Instagram that algorithm is just drives me crazy. On the one hand, it throws a lot of interesting people in my orbit.
As waterfowlers, we experience all kinds of extreme weather conditions. Stay bone dry and warm with Frog Togs hunting gear. You can check them out at frogtogs.com or at frogtogshunt on Instagram.
And on the other hand, it wants us users to make something called Reels, which is kind of like TikTok format. And if you aren't making Reels, you ain't getting no traction.
Yep.
And whether you're posting or whatever you're doing, it's just it wants you to make Reels. So you make a reel, and it's a great way. Who cares? It's a great way to share what you're doing, video instead of photos. We do a lot of it ourselves. Well, I got one of all things. It's kind of like I'm holding a red shoveler, 7-second second. His wings tucked into a side pocket. I expose it to show that big, beautiful wing and that gleaming, spectacular green speculum. And I'll be honest with you, it's gotten so many views. Makes my palms kind of sweat. I ain't lying. It's kind of freaking me out. It's got almost 700,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah, and way more likes than almost anything else I've ever posted. But boy, howdy, has it attracted some haters. Like just today, I took a screenshot, and it's a very interesting topic to me. Because even though I can't fully articulate what it is about me, it makes me want to go out and shoot those pretty ducks, so to put. Let me think what this guy said. I don't know who this guy is, but to consider, and it's not an American, but he says, imagine thinking something is beautiful and your reaction is to shoot it. Weird, man.
But really think about somebody from a totally opposite side of the spectrum. Yeah,
exactly. Well, what I wrote, first of all, I've got a standard policy. And it's just a no-fail, standard, strict social media policy. Whether I'm on my page, your page, their page, any page, I block it. If I read something like that on anywhere in the world, the first thing I do is what? Block. And it's just a way of me purging the universe of people like that coming into my orbit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
But
protecting
so
your
I block
happiness.
him. But the reply is, imagine being so far removed from nature and so far removed, because you're likely a big city guy, so far removed from humanity's, since the dawn of times, role in nature, that you view hunting from that viewpoint. I can understand if you don't hunt.
What an amazing point, Ramsey. Ramsey, that is amazing.
And so that's just that's just my take on it. I think we've got to start rolling up our sleeves. And I don't ascribe to not hurting an anti-hunter's feelings. I hunt.
Yeah.
And with all that this woke ass world is trying to shove down my throat, that I accept. I don't get off into your woke ass page telling you you're wrong.
Right.
I'm just going to live my life. You know what I'm saying? But don't jump on me and make me. I don't feel like a boogeyman, because one of the points I try to make, I said it in I said it in depth. I spoke to this topic on that documentary. It just didn't make the edit because of time constraints. They had something else they wanted to say. But here's the deal. Here's where hunting is conservation. And I'm going to speak to North America. We're losing habitat. John Devaney recently said on a podcast of ours that despite the billions of dollars that we hunters are contributing in time and money, and organizations like Delta Waterfowl and Ducks Unlimited and everybody else, this whole ball of wax, we are still losing in America 0.8%, 0.8% of habitat annually.
Wow.
So whatever acreage that represents, understand that if you lose 1%, next year that percent represents more acres. Okay, we're losing it. And right now, and I'm going to point down to Australia for an example. Right now, 27,000 Australians duck hunt. The government's not counting ducks. The government's not doing inventory. They have no estimate of harvest. They don't know how many wetlands they've got. They know nothing but that most of them love ducks and hate us killing them.
Wow.
But the sheepdog are those hunters. We're the ones that are raising hell about wetlands lost in America. They're the ones that want more habitat. With 8 billion people on Earth, you cannot put nature in a jar and expect it to be there. It's not going to just stay there. It's going to take an active role and an active participation. We don't need no net loss wetlands. We need positive gains in wetlands and habitat worldwide. So that's just, we hunters are right now the minority, but we're the only ones that are championing wetlands conservation, wildlife conservation. Right here in America, there's a major movement underfoot to divest wildlife management or some of these state DNR federal agency budgets, to completely divest hunting related funding from their budgets.
Wow.
Because they're arguing that we hunters are unduly influencing the output of their activities managing for game animals by contributing this amount of dollars. Just imagine if you remove those billions of dollars that just us few hunters are putting into wildlife conservation, remove it completely. Now what?
Right.
It's over. So it's a passionate thing to me, and I'm to anybody listening saying, well, Australia, what the hell does that got to do with me? Buddy, it's a global movement.
Yep.
The funding coming to fight Australia is coming from Australia, the United States, South Africa for some reason, and the United Kingdom. What are they going to do if the hunting closes in Australia? Emboldened, they're going to shift that budget elsewhere. Where? Maybe your backyard, maybe America. Right now, we've got anti-hunting agencies, plural. They're not going to our wetlands and waving flags and blowing horns and disturbing us because there's laws against that stuff. They're working behind the scenes and legislatively relegating us into oblivion. This whole Biden administration thing about shutting down the refuges and the non-toxic shot, the non-toxic fish weights, that's coming from that think tank.
Mm-hmm.
You can limit access by putting signs up, or you can limit access by marginalizing the affordability in which we hunters participate. Mm-hmm. Do you know back in the late 90s, when they converted from lead shot to steel shot, 50% of duck hunters in America quit hunting.
Wow.
50%.
Good Lord.
Holy cow.
Well,
yep.
One thing I thought was interesting kind of to that point is I think, you know, like going back to like Teddy Roosevelt and like people like that were really influential of making, you know, hunting what it is in the United States today. Mm-hmm. And our German cousin was just in town.
Oh, Ramsey, this was great.
And she was telling us, you know, we got talking about, you know, how it is to get a hunting license over there. And it's like, I mean, it's something like, I think she said it's like an 8 or 12 week class. And I think historically, you'll probably know this, but I think historically Europe, you know, hunting over there is like, you know, a rich, uppity thing, and they've tried to keep it that way over history. And the United States was the first project where hunting was like accessible to the average man, right?
Yep. Yep.
No, it was done by royalty.
You just remind me of a funny story. Mm-hmm. You remind me of a funny story. I don't know if I've ever told this in a podcast.
All right.
And so I was hunting over in Netherlands. I was over there for 6 weeks, years and years and years and years ago, and had some time off. And one of my hosts said, "Let's go to Germany and visit a mutual friend." I just so happened to know his mutual friend from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I said, "All right." And man, I'd been hunting for about a month. I was whipped, and he left Netherlands, and we started driving. When I woke up, it looked like I was in Central Tennessee, rolling hills and big oak trees. It wasn't until you could see those spired and colorful rooftops that I realized, you know, I wasn't in Tennessee, I was in Germany. and I'm still tired. And the plan was we're going to get there, check into a hotel, you know, maybe get a bite to eat, drink a beer, and plenty of time to go take a nap and get together that afternoon. So we get in the bar, and he said, let's drink a beer. I said, just one. Well, a beer over there is, it's like a iced tea pitcher. Right. Bam. Yeah. Here comes this draft beer about the size of an iced tea, like a pitcher of beer. I'm like, oh my gosh. So boy, am I going to sleep good when I drink this beer.
That's right.
And then our host shows up. Let's drink another round. Jägermeister.
Oh, God.
And, Master Hunter in German, for those of you that do not know that.
That's right. And
my mama told me that.
That's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So forget the nap. At this time, it's like it's time to go.
Black licorice on the lips and beer in your throat.
As we're going to a boar hunt, you know, and we show up, and there's like posted signs, like they had to put like election signs, they had to post it all around the area that there was an ongoing hunt just to notify the public, right? Mm-hmm. And I show up, and man, it was such a friendly crowd. A lot of them spoke English, some of them didn't. Very, very congenial. And first thing they did was hand me a beer. And that's okay, 'cause I'm just observer, right? No, they hand me a gun. And they but because I'm the guest and nobody, I go block. Me and him go block a area that the hog ain't really expected to go. And I'll be dang if I just start. You could just here he comes through the corn. You can see the corn parting as he's coming up near me. And all of a sudden he turned and went the other way. I later told Hank, I said, the reason he went the other way is because I was probably swaying a little too much with 3 beers in me. and had no business holding a gun anyway, but when in Rome, right?
Yeah.
So the next day, one of the Germans says, we're going fox hunting. I go, fox hunting? He goes, yeah. And he held out his hand, and he had these 2 firecrackers. Well, I would describe each firecracker as being roughly 3/4 the size of a flare.
Wow.
And I said, well, I don't get it. He said, what do you mean? I said, we're going fox hunting. I said, but what do you need dynamite for?
Yeah.
He said, you'll see. You shall see. So we get down to where we're going, and it's like some agricultural land and a fence road coming through, like a little tree line. And he goes and sets up a target. He wants to see me shoot the rifle before we go deer hunting. And about that time, these two little terriers he had kind of wandered off, and all of a sudden, whop, 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 they start barking, coming our way. He runs to the truck, hands me a shotgun, and says, a fox. I go, a fox. He goes, get ready. And we step into that little tree line, and that freaking red fox went right across my feet. I'm like, holy. And I go, I'll be dang. Well, he ran up into a culvert. There's a wide road, dirt road, turn road with a big old pipe in it. And we ran to it. And he says, get on the other side. I said, for what? He said, get on the other side. I get on the other side. Now I found out what them firecrackers for. He threw one of them firecrackers in that pipe, and when it went off, boom, I felt it vibrate under my feet.
Wow.
It looked like that red fox had been shot from a cannon on the other side. Man, I'm a duck hunter. I can hit a flying fox.
That's right.
And so anyway, that was my German fox story.
Oh my gosh.
Completely different than anything I would, right about the time you think you've seen and done it all, you go fox hunting in Germany.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up real quick, just about my German niece being here. And this is something we were talking about as far as like cultural acceptance of stuff, and understanding things from a different viewpoint. She is like this animal lover, everything else. And she is so inspired by what she sees her cousin do, her uncle do, all this stuff. And she's inspired by it, but yet she just doesn't quite understand it, And so when she's been here 3 times in the last 2 years, she's wanted to just go out with us, and like she never took a life of a fish. Me and Tristan,
wow.
I caught her. I went outside to use the restroom. My wife wouldn't like me saying this instead of going to the bathroom, but I went outside to the back of the house to use the restroom during the podcast, and I walk out there, and she's out there praying, and I go, "Oh, I caught you praying. I'm sorry." I go, I'll walk away, and she goes, No. So she goes, I'm just praying for the catfish that Cody caught tonight. And I said,
oh my God.
I said, what? And she goes, well, I'm praying for it. I feel bad for it. And come to find out that day, my niece also went into the lake and helped revive a fish, So I had to talk with her, and it's just so interesting to hear it from somebody's innocent mind that just doesn't know about what we do, And,
yeah.
And if you get out there and just bark, we kill stuff, whatever, of course you're going to have the anti-hunters against you. But now that she's been out here 3 times, she's starting to learn a little bit. She's starting to accept a little bit. She went out and got in the tree stand. She tasted the ducks that we've killed. She's tasted the venison that we've taken.
And this is a girl that was vegetarian for 5 years, I think she said.
Yeah.
And she said she liked the way we cook ducks. She liked the way we cook deer,
Yeah, and it's just a part of bringing somebody into what we do. And sometimes and I talked about this when we brought Tristan's wife into duck hunting, is everybody comes in at their own pace, man. It's our job as hunters, conservationists, people, just being friends, people, is to understand where somebody comes from to help work them into what you do. And if they don't agree with you, it's okay. But if they're interested in learning about it, man,
I agree entirely.
Yeah, it's a fun experience, and we have felt that as a family, and that's what's so cool about when you talk about that tonight, Ramsey. That hits home with us in a big way. In a big way.
I think every one of us, everybody listening, myself, everybody, I think that hunting is a hand-me-down tradition. We all learn from somebody that cared enough to show us, whether it was our parents or our grandparents or our friends or family friends. And I guarantee you, everybody listening, if they've got children, it's important to them to introduce their children to it. And that's hand-me-down part. But in this day and age, I think it's important that, how we post, what we post, you're not, if it's dead animal, it's going to upset some people.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think that the way it's presented, how it's presented, and how we conduct ourselves, I think it's incumbent on us to conduct ourselves at a somewhat higher level, because never before in humanity have we been so scrutinized.
Yes.
You know, and we've got to be better educators and everything else. And it's just, I think it's just the world we live in. You know, it just is. You know, none of us are hunting. Yes, I eat lots and lots of wild game and ducks, but none of us have to hunt to live.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It is a recreational component that does benefit wildlife through our conservation dollars. But I think we would serve ourselves and everything else very well just by being a good example.
Yep. Now, Ramsey, one thing I wanted to kind of get back on this documentary that was so incredible to me when I watched it, and thank you for sharing it with me and Tristan, is that, you know, number one, I think there's a lot of people out there at just a base. They need to understand that the reason why you cannot buy wild game is because it led to the extinction and almost a lot of extinctions of several animals from top to bottom, birds to mammals to you name it. And one of the things in the documentary that you guys went through is it tells the story about that. And then you talk about, and I'll let you pick it up from here, you talk about how it started to change from the leisure side to the hunter starting to understand that, now I got to start to protect this or I won't be able to do it ever.
Well, you know, what I've learned through conversations and research is that, let's take the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which we're all, 3 shells in our guns, shooting 30 minutes before sunrise until sunset, and the different bag limits and all the restrictions that we abide as migratory game, migratory bird hunters is, preceding that, it was actually the states that initiated some of the first rules. Now, you got to understand, back during those old market hunting days they were talking about, it wasn't just ducks and geese and swans. You could open up the Houston Chronicle, back in the mid 1800s, and under the housewife section, there were recipes for mockingbirds and tanagers.
Wow.
And cardinals.
Wow.
I mean, wildlife was being consumed, and it was widely accepted to be consumed. And even though hunting was not a recreation at all, most people were consuming ducks or mockingbirds or whatever. But truth of the matter is, they were just going to the local market and getting it.
Wow.
And because they were working on a farm or doing whatever, and and so, but kind of what happened around the late 1800s, that golden era, that gilded age in American history, with all that wealth, along comes the railroads. And those railroads are penetrating wildernesses. And there was a lot of wealth, and there was a lot of opportunity, and there was an abundance of wildlife. And not just the Chesapeake Bay, but parts of Utah, parts of California, parts of South Texas, parts of Louisiana, parts of Florida. A lot of places were being accessed.
Mm-hmm.
And there were just a lot of famous wars, like Rob Sawyer down in Texas has written about this extensively in a lot of his books, the Canvasback Wars. Mm-hmm. But what was parts of Tennessee, Sunken Land, Arkansas, same thing was going on. These businessmen were getting on a train, coming down to hunt on their property for 2 weeks, coming to their club to hunt, and there weren't the numbers they wanted to shoot when there was no limits. They wanted to go shoot 150, 200 ducks a day. I've seen camp records where opening day in parts of Utah, everybody brought in 75, 80 ducks, pintails, mallards, green wings.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Back in those days. And they wanted to go shoot it. And they became increasingly unable to, because there were market hunters out there punt gunning and trapping and baiting and doing everything to feed the legal market. And I think the way it kind of became to express itself is, some of these clubs were hiring property guards. There were shootouts. There were skirmishes. It was just all kinds of stuff going on. And finally, connected people started doing what connected people do, which is reaching out to the politicians saying, what do we do?
Hmm.
So laws began to be enacted to marginalize market hunting. And slowly but surely, you know, it was buck market hunting, and those old outlaw gunner days was bucked, not just by the market hunters, but by the housewives that wanted to go to the market and buy something to eat for their family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it just took a while to catch hold, and eventually it did. You know, by the early 1900s, it had caught hold, and the federal government became involved, and which actually brought some real enforcement into the equation, and the rest is history. But it really and truly was sport hunters that heralded in the conservation era. You know, we can take. And I have been fortunate to hunt a lot of parts of the world that don't have bag limits. Baiting is legal. Electronic calls are legal. And folks, if that way of life was still, you know, legal here in the United States, there wouldn't be no birds left.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's a reason that stuff is not allowed.
Sure.
And you know, we don't need who needs to be going shooting 100 ducks a day, 100 mallards a day anyway.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or 100 ducks anywhere on the world anyway. Nobody needs that kind of number no more.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I just find that kind of stuff interesting.
Yep. I'm glad you went into all that. That's awesome.
Yeah. It, you know, and as we've been talking tonight, you know, and I don't mean to spiral off into another rabbit hole, but you know, one thing that I've done sometimes, and I've shared this with Tristan, and I don't know if he really understood where I was going with it at the time, but you know, sometimes I'll be sitting in camp, whether I'm deer hunting, duck hunting, whatever I'm doing, and I've looked at the bottom of my boots, and I've got this specific pair of I'm not giving these shout outs or anything, but I got these Irish setter boots that they're my hiking boots, and I remember looking at them one time and seeing that the tread was worn down. Mm-hmm. And I can't help but, Ramsey, we were talking about Shardog touching some ground. You know, you talk about putting your feet up under somebody's table to learn their culture. I just can't help. It blows my mind what you've been able to experience with your feet and the shoes you've had on. And, you know, just like Forrest says, you know, about his shoes, you know, but my goodness, it just humbles me to death.
One step at a time, too. You know, that's just all we can do. But man, I sure have enjoyed coming on y'all's show again. I tell you, I always enjoy our conversations.
Yeah,
we've had a blast too. It's been great.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, so let's just kind of break down real quick one time. You know, let's give we gotta definitely plug the Get Ducks, what you're doing out there. Where can everybody find you? Where can they follow your journey, Ramsey? Plug definitely the documentary coming up that's going to be released on PBS, and I'm sure it's going to get viral quickly. It's such a professional depiction from an honest perspective of hunting. And Ramsey, you represented our hunting community like a gem. I mean, you did, and
Thank you.
It just blew my mind, and I think everybody in this whole hunting community would just be like, yeah, that's our guy. Yeah, I mean, so thank you. So, but where can everybody find you?
Yeah, I'm easy to find. I mean, I'm very easy to find on the internet. But our website is getducks.com. My Instagram account is at Ramsey Russell Get Ducks. I've got a podcast, Duck Season Somewhere, where I bring my mic everywhere in the world I go. I like to engage people around the world. If they can speak enough English to do it, I like to sit down with them and hear their stories and hear their cultural perspectives, and throughout the United States and everywhere else. And that's pretty much it. I have nothing whatsoever to do with the documentary, except I was fortunate enough to be asked to come on briefly. It's a 6-part series on PBS Wednesday nights at 8:00 Central Time, entitled Human Footprint. You can go to pbs.org and watch all of them streaming online. I was in episode 2 called Top Predator. The first one was about invasive species. It was awesome.
Yeah.
This week will be dogs, and I've seen some previews. I think it's going to be incredible. It's a 6-part series, and they've done an incredible way of bringing it all together about just how we humans impact the world around us. And but they've brought a lot of humor to it. They've brought a lot of soberness to it. With regards to hunting, it was a very, very balanced perspective, and I think anybody like us would enjoy watching it. What the hell else you gonna watch? 2.5 Men?
Yeah,
reruns.
exactly. The Kardashians.
I mean, you know, so I think it's a great documentary.
That's awesome. Well, the deepest of thanks once again, and I got to definitely put it on my bucket list to get out there with Ramsey Russell wherever we may meet sometime. So like we told you before, if you're gonna hunt down in Florida, you just let us know, and we'll try to figure it out.
Well, if y'all find yourselves over my neck of the woods too, I cut a pretty wide swath. Inevitably, we're the three of us. Ramsey and Tony and Tristan are going to find ourselves in a duck blind or somewhere together, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, thank you so much. We're humbled to death to have you on here, and wish you the safest and best for you and your wife and Shardog and all your travels and the people that you work with.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I've been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on a midnight train. Going too fast now, think I'll slow down, standing in the pouring rain.